Oh, what's going on, y'all? It's Michael back with more unconventional thought. And this time I was kind of thinking about a popular topic that's been being discussed in America, and that's illegal immigration or just immigration in general. And I've been saying for years to people, this doesn't really affect us that much, especially like other topics like inflation, for instance. Everything's going up at crazy rates, and there's a lot of other things that we don't really talk about that really have a direct effect on our life, like, maybe losing Social Security and things like this. But I kind of feel like if it's not being discussed, then we don't discuss it. And I almost feel that a lot of topics are thrown at us to kind of distract us from other things that are going on. But that's another topic. I don't talk much about politics. I don't get into the whole left-right thing. I think at this point, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't identify with either side. I think this whole war is mostly being fought at the ground level or mostly amongst the citizens, and the people who make policy don't really give a shit about any of this. I think that there are people who study human behavior and understand that the more emotionally engaged we are, the less rational we become. And I think that we're kind of being pitted against each other. First off, let me just say that this is not a criticism of either side. I don't even believe in this kind of side crap, but it's not a criticism. I think that there's a lot of scapegoating going on, and I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to criticize anyone. But yeah, and I just remember saying, it doesn't really affect us. There's a lot of other things that we should, could be thinking about and talking about. And then I had a thought. Something kind of occurred to me. I thought, well, maybe it doesn't really affect me, but there are other people who may not see it quite the same way. And I started to think about, in terms, to draw an analogy, like I like to watch this show Lock Up for whatever reason. So like, say, they're in prisons, they have these different gangs, and sometimes it's by race, or sometimes it's by, street gangs, things like that, or prison gangs. But the ones who have like the largest number, like I'm from LA, and I think in that part of California, I think it's like the Sureños, the Southern Mexicans. I think they're the biggest group. Just as an example, if you are of the group that is the largest, and it has like, that can come with other things, like you can have more pull. Maybe you guys are the ones that are running the yard, or you're running the freaking pod, or the tier, whatever it is. And, you guys determine what you're going to watch at 9 o'clock. You say, we're going to watch Saturday Night Live. We're going to watch the rerun of this show, or the game that was on earlier, the replay. And, maybe you get an extra tray or something when it comes to chow, or whatever the hell you call it. And you may get some extra perks because your group kind of runs that tier or pod or whatever. And if things were to start to change, like all of a sudden you would have like an influx of another group of people coming into that prison, and all of a sudden you start to see the numbers change, and where you may have had a clear majority, now that dynamic is starting to shift. And then along with their numbers growing from this other group, they may, have more say, or more power, or more influence in this dynamic. And it may not be that you hate those people, or, you just have a problem with anything they're doing, but on a subconscious level, you may not like that because you could be losing some of your relative privilege. Now, I'm a big word guy, and I don't like to say that certain people or certain groups are privileged, because it just makes it sound like they don't have the same, issues that the rest of us have. I use the term relative privilege. In a certain dynamic, you can have more privilege than other people or other groups. So if you have this influx of other people coming in, and it's starting to change the dynamic, change the whole status quo, and you can lose some of that relative privilege. And again, you may not like that. And I don't think that makes you a bad person. I think it's kind of a natural thing. And if you push back against that, it may make it seem like you're against that particular group. It may not be that. It could be happening more on a subconscious level, where you liked things the way they were. And it could be that it was beneficial to you. Not that you had no problems in the world, but in that dynamic, you had relative privilege. And as things change, you may not like that. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it doesn't really affect us here. Like, it's not a big deal. All this immigration, not to the point that, the extent that people are making it out to be. But I'm like, well, maybe it just doesn't affect me. And there are other people who it may look like racism, and with some people, that might actually be the way their rhetoric is going in that direction. But I think it's mostly, for most people. First off, I'm not saying that everyone who identifies with this particular side is that way. I'm not saying everyone is the same, and I'm not saying that these people who feel this way subconsciously or consciously are bad. It's like I think I kind of get it. I don't know if I would be the same way if I was in the group that was in the majority and had the most influence and had the relative privilege. If I would be the same, I don't know. But yeah, I think that's what's really going on with this whole illegal immigration topic. And it's not for everyone that's against it, and those are happy to see the deportations. I'm not saying this is for everyone, but I think it's happening for a lot of people. I think this could be a part of it. This is just kind of, what I think, what I've been thinking. And I think it happened mostly on a subconscious level. And again, it's not a judgment if that is the case for you. And I'm not saying that anyone from any particular side is I'm not saying you're all the same, and I'm not judging anyone. I don't believe in the whole left-right paradigm. I don't associate with either side. I think the whole thing is ridiculous. If you're a conservative, you are right wing, you're a Republican, salute to you, shout out to you. No judgment at all. Just a kind of an example of what I'm talking about. I saw this thing online. And this part in particular I found interesting. It says, in places where white people have the demographic majority, white nativism, characterized by a longing for a period when whites were dominant politically and economically, arises when some of the majority white population fears for the loss of its stature relative to non-white populations. And in the U.S., non-whites have higher birth rates and make up the bulk of new immigrants. And also this part where it says fighting for dominance. My research reveals that it is the declining majority that tends to act aggressively, often imagining it must preempt the rising minority. Simply put, declining majorities don't want to yield their status and hegemony. This turns demographic shifts into a struggle about power and dominance, with elements of the majority refusing to cede ground to emerging new pluralities and majorities that might displace them. Now, again, I don't feel this is about any particular group. I'm not talking about white people. I'm not talking about any specific group. I'm talking about human social dynamics. I believe this is kind of a natural thing. It's going to happen. Like, whoever is the group who established the way the society runs, the type of morals, traditions, ideals, and that basically say what's what, how everything's going to work. I think this is going to apply to that group, whatever country you're in, whatever. It doesn't even have to be around racial or ethnic groups. It could be religious. It could be gender. It could be national, dealing with other people from other countries. It doesn't matter what groups we're talking about and who the groups are. This is what I think is the messaging behind Make America Great Again. It just applies because that's the current movement in the country that I live in. That's what made me think of all this. And it just seems like it just has to do with these dynamics that I just read and that I'm trying to describe in this video. Shout out to the real conservatives. I think everyone really on both of these imaginary sides want the same thing. They want what's good for themselves and their loved ones in this society that they live in. But yeah, I don't identify with a certain side or group, and then all of my opinions are based on my affiliation with that group, because I think that's normal human behavior, but I also think it's irrational. That's just not really how I think of things. I think I have relatively unconventional thoughts. Like, I'm gonna do a video by the time this is uploaded. It'll probably be uploaded too, but about the whole slavery was a choice thing. The statement made, I think, twice now by Kanye West, and has caused a big stir. What I think about that statement, it's obviously true. See, I'm of the group that usually has a problem with that statement, but it's true. And I'm not saying this for the same reason some other people might say that. You may not know where I'm going to go with this, but I'm going to do a video about that. But I say this to say I don't identify with a group and then let my opinions be based on my emotional connection to that group, because I think that's what we usually do. And then we kind of go through all this mental gymnastics, and that's when the cognitive bias kicks in, and we kind of reframe everything to fit into our narrow worldview box. And I think that's natural but irrational. So when I come up with these opinions, it's just like from observing people and what do I think is at the heart of different behaviors and thoughts. And, that's just what I call like my poker mind. That's how you read people, just what's really causing this behavior pattern or thought pattern. What's at the root of it. And there's no judgment, and it's just I observe people, and it's just some of the things that I think about. It's not about what I identify with or about judgment. It's just what I think may be the case in human behavior and thought. And on that note, thanks for listening, Michael. Unconventional Thought. I'm out.